Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA Podcast Recap Edition. This is technically episode 200 when you think about it.
Technically, yes.
This is the second time we are recording episode 199. Our sincerest apologies. We had uploaded our first rendition this morning, and upon releasing it, realized that the audio was pretty unbearable. So we scrapped it. We're here. It's about noon Monday, so you guys will be seeing this the day that we are recording. But it's going to be the same contents that we talked about.
Yeah, yesterday.
But hey, that was basically a test run. So
Yes.
hopefully this means this episode's going to be just the best of all time, right?
Basically, high expectations.
But I'm going to cut right through the small talk, right through all that. I'm going to tell you guys that you can follow Dominic on Twitter and Instagram at DSleep14. You can follow the podcast on Twitter or Instagram at BAJ_MMA podcast. If you're watching on video, just look above Dom's head. And for me, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at NTBaker_. Link in the bio takes you to the link tree, list of links. Shout out to today's sponsor, Anchor.
Shout out.
And with that, we head back to the Apex, Dom. UFC Vegas 52 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Jessica Andrade, the former strawweight champion, returns to the division she once ruled and gets the first ever standing head and arm triangle. Is it just called an arm triangle?
That's what I call it, yeah. Standing arm triangle.
noob
Impressive
over
stuff.
here. Yes, the first standing arm triangle in UFC history. Gets it done in the first round, about 3 minutes in. Dominic, it was an interesting fight. Obviously only 3 minutes long. Lemos seemed to be getting the better of the stand-up early. Seemed to be mixing her strikes up very well. A lot of good leg kicks. But as Jessica Andrade, very... She pounced on the opportunity, dare I say. They found themselves in a bit of a clinch. Lemos trying to avoid that, and Andrade was able to catch her in that submission, and that's all she wrote. So, for you, is this the kind of performance for Jessica Andrade to throw her right back into the title picture here at strawweight?
Yeah, it's definitely one that puts her in the picture. However, the picture is so jam-packed right now, she's going to probably have to wait a little bit. I'm going to stick with what I said Thursday and say one more win, regardless of who that is, and she's right there for the title. What a performance from her. Lemos looked good, to her credit. She had won 5 in a row, was doing what I felt she needed to do in order to win the fight, but Andrade, with so much more high-level experience, she was able to close that distance. Inevitably, it was going to happen, and Lemos was unable to respond well. Of course, she got locked into a historical submission that's never happened before. Jessica Andrade, still only 30 years old. It blows my mind, all of the records and accolades that she has, and still only 30, right in her athletic prime. Many big things still ahead for Jessica Andrade. What a way to re-enter the division that she once held the crown in, man.
Yeah, for as much credit as we give Andrade for her hands and the power that she holds, 8 TKOs, by the way, this was her 7th submission win in her career. So she's quite flexible when it comes to mixing it up. She'll sub you, she'll knock you out either way you're going to sleep. And to me, Dominic, I can't help but I get that itch after this fight, man. I want so badly to see the trilogy fight between Jessica Andrade and Rose Namajunas. Now, am I a little biased? Yes, Jessica Andrade is probably my favorite female fighter. So, obviously, that fight just probably means more to me than maybe some people. But I think that fight has a lot of relevance.
Yeah.
Sure, you can look at those first 2 fights, and maybe some people remember them as, Rose kind of dominating, but then Andrade getting lucky in the first fight, second fight being more of how it would go over the course of 15 minutes. But that second fight, you guys should go rewatch it. It was a great fight. Rose looked great for the first 2 rounds, but then Andrade came out back late, hurt Rose multiple times. If that fight went into the championship rounds, if it was a title fight, I'm not sure that Rose Namajunas makes it out of there alive. So that's why that fight just still interests me. But we did get an official announcement on Saturday for Weili Joanna 2 that's happening this summer. You do have Marina Rodriguez, who might be the most deserving of all these contenders. And obviously, whatever happens with Rose and Esparza, you never know what could follow for either of those two. So the picture's log jammed. Who would be an ideal next opponent in your eyes if you had like one choice to give to Jessica Andrade?
Yeah, man, that's a good question because she's got history with 3 of the 4 names you just mentioned. You know, there's 1-1 with Rose. She lost the title to Zhang Weili. She lost a title opportunity against Joanna Jędrzejczyk that a lot of people forget about. That was a fun scrap back at UFC 211 in Dallas. So shout out to Stipe, also was on that card. But, you know, for Jessica, listen, I love Marina Rodriguez. She's on a tear right now. She is the most deserving to face the winner of Carla and Rose. That's happening here in 2 weeks. But if the UFC is reluctant on pushing her into that spot, why not do Marina Rodriguez versus Jessica Andrade, a title eliminator, a fresh matchup for both, but especially Andrade, who seems like she's fought every woman in the history of the UFC in all 3 divisions. So why not do that? That's an amazing scrap, too, by the way. Marina, a phenomenal Muay Thai practitioner, great at managing the distance. Andrade, you know, we've seen her fight someone like that in Joanna, but that was years ago, 5 or 6 at this point. So how could Jessica kind of approach this differently this time around in her second stint at strawweight, excuse me? I think that would be the fight to make should Marina not get the title shot.
Yeah, I want to root for Marina to get the title shot, but all I'm saying is that I'm not going to be upset if Andrade gets it, just because, yeah, she only beat the number 10 person here, but guys, she was already ranked number 1 at women's flyweight, and obviously before that was on a really good run at strawweight, was probably ranked like number 2 when she left that division. So she's still one of the best in the division. I'll be interested to see where the rankings place her on Tuesday, just because she is only beating number 10, but she should not just jump in the number 10. It should be.
She should honestly be top 5, if I'm being honest, I think.
Dare I say she should be like right behind Zhang Weili. I mean, Joanna's out of the rankings, so I mean, it seems to fit for me. But you have a good case for Marina and that fight to happen. It's just the reason I don't want that to be the next fight is because I want one of those two to get the next title shot the most.
Exactly.
So. But if that matchup did happen, stylistically, very interesting. The strength of Andrade versus the technical precision of Marina Rodriguez, very interesting.
Yes, yes.
Now let's move into more on this card later, but we're going to talk about a lot of MMA this weekend. I mean, guys,
so much.
I mean, it started on Wednesday with PFL. Yeah, we got a bunch here, but Bellator 279. This was the first of 2, or the second of 2. Bellator events this weekend. This was the one on Saturday, headlined by the rematch for the women's featherweight title. Cris Cyborg once again is your champion, and she will leave with that very title after a very hard fought unanimous decision win over Arlene Blencowe. Now, first fight, Cris Cyborg gets her first submission of her very long and illustrious MMA career. Here, Dominic, not quite the same result. Well, it was kind of the same result in the sense of the winner.
Yeah.
But the fight went much differently. I thought Arlene Blencowe made a much better showing of herself.
Yeah.
Fought with a lot of heart, a lot of guts. Fought through some big, heavy shots that she was eating. Landed a few good ones of her own.
Yes.
But, man, Cris Cyborg here, dare I say, like, this was like the best Cyborg has looked in Bellator almost. I mean, yeah, she didn't put her away, but she just, I mean... And she did not even fight probably the best fight for Blencowe. Like, I don't know if that's... I might be misjudging that statement, but think about how the first time out, she got so much better of the grappling exchanges that you would think that she might go back to that here, but she never did. She basically fought Arlene in the style of fight that Arlene would have the best chance to get a victory, but dominated her throughout. She was outmatched here, Arlene Blencowe, that is. But she deserves a tip of the hat for a hell of a performance.
Yeah, I agree, man. This fight kind of gave me similar vibes to when Cyborg fought Leslie Smith. You know, kind of a drag-it-out war. She did finish her in the 5th round in that one with 9 seconds left. But, you know, take out the finish, that's what this fight was, honestly. So, you know, I enjoy seeing Cyborg be tested, if you will, kind of seeing her go into the deep waters, and she performs well, man. And she's like 36 or 37 years old now, but still looking as good as ever, still doing things she hasn't done, her first decision in Bellator. So she's still at the top of her game as far as I'm concerned. She looks great. Power's there, technique's there. She just seems to still be evolving, maybe not leaps and bounds, but she still is just getting better. And with all the fights and experience that she has and her age, it's quite impressive, man. So for her to just continue, this is her 4th title defense already in Bellator. She's still very active. So, man, I mean, she just keeps putting accolades and icing on top of this illustrious career she's had.
Yeah, and in the post-fight, we saw her mention 2 different names, well, 3, but I'm not going to include Amanda Nunes in this. She mentioned Kat Zingano and, of course, Kayla Harrison. Now, as I had possibly predicted, Kayla Harrison was not in attendance. At least I don't believe she was. They didn't show her anyways.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that Kat Zingano was watching this fight very closely. We've been kind of confused why that title fight hasn't been made yet.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the next fight, or do you kind of trust the words of Scott Coker from a couple months ago where he guaranteed that Cyborg would be defending in a rematch with Sinead Kavanaugh in the fall?
Yeah, listen, Kavanaugh looked great in her last fight. Showed a lot of resiliency, but I'm pretty sure she had a banged up knee, so I don't know what her actual status is in terms of fighting. It has to be Kat Zingano next. That fight's never happened. It's 2 OGs of women's mixed martial arts, especially at like the top tier promotions for both of them, and the fact that they've never fought is quite mind-boggling, honestly. So I hope that that is what is next. I don't know what the holdup has been. I foresee Cris Cyborg fighting one more time in 2022, defending her belt against Kat Zingano. And then Noah, you mentioned that second name, and Kayla Harrison, and I know she's getting ready to fight here in 2 weeks. The regular season for the PFL's kicked off, as we're going to talk about later. But I can't help that by the end of the year, should Kayla win the season, because she has to win, obviously, for this to happen. But I think should she do that, by this time next year, if we haven't seen Harrison versus Cyborg yet, it's at least going to be in talks, getting ready to happen. I think one more fight for Cyborg. Kayla finishes the season. 2022 is over. 2023, big year, huge fight. Book it.
That's definitely what the PFL is looking to do. You can tell because that's when they're wanting to start their pay-per-view division, I believe. I know the Spin and Back Fist show did an interview with the is he the president, the owner of PFL, the head honcho of the PFL. I don't know the title, but CEO, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
And he had mentioned that like that kind of fight would be prime for their pay-per-view division. So that would make a lot of sense. But yes, a lot has to go right for that to happen. And yes, it does seem like it seems like a pretty solid bet to say that Cris Cyborg will hold her title and Kayla Harrison will win the tournament, but it's still got to happen.
Right.
Cyborg wants to stay active. Who's to say she doesn't defend 2 more times this year?
Yeah.
And, I'm not sure if it matters if it's Kat Zingano or Sinead Kavanaugh. I know, we like Kat Zingano. We like that, her career, she's been able to kind of bounce back from a lot of personal turmoil and make a very solid run here in Bellator. But, I don't know if it's really a harder test than Sinead Kavanaugh is at the end of the day. I mean, it's, Kat Zingano is not a natural women's featherweight. I'm not sure what she would really offer that to harm Cris Cyborg to make her really work for it. But that's not why fights get put together. She's a clear, deserving contender. I just wish Bellator would kind of give her that shot.
Yeah.
More on this card to come as well. Actually, right now, we're going to talk about the Bantamweight Grand Prix. Yeah,
yes.
I know the headline talks about the co-main spot, but we're just going to talk about the Grand Prix action that we saw. It started with Bellator 278 on Friday. We had our 2 play-in bouts that saw Enrique Barzola get a unanimous decision win over Nikita Mikhailov. Danny Sabatello with a dominant unanimous decision over Jornel Lugo. And then we had 2 quarterfinal matchups as Rafael Stotts got the knockout of Juan Archuleta, the former bantamweight champion, to secure his interim gold. He did that with a mixture of a head kick where the knee landed to the head and then threw some elbows to follow it up. 16 seconds in round 3. It was perfect.
Yes.
And also, finally, we also had Patchy Mix get a bit of a surprise win here over Kyoji Horiguchi. Horiguchi may be one of the favorites to win this whole tournament. Loses his first matchup here with Patchy Mix via unanimous decision. So a lot of fights, a lot of good fights. What are the big takeaways here for you, Dom?
Yeah, it's just a quick rundown for me, firing off on all cylinders here. We got to start with Rafion Stotts. He gets the headline here on the show for a reason because he had the most dominant, at least the most decisive win.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
finish,
dominant,
not dominant.
but
yeah, the most decisive finish, the most decisive win, putting former champion away, Juan Archuleta like that. It was a brutal knockout for Rafion Stotts. You know, a former teammate. I don't know if they're still teammates. I know he was with Extreme Couture for this camp, so maybe him and Sergio starting to separate because they know a fight is on the horizon. But still, you know, that both those guys, the fact that they hold gold technically, what a story there. If they ever get to fight, it's going to be massive for Bellator, I'm sure. So what a performance from Stotts. You know, Juan Archuleta came out with a wrestling game plan, which I'm sure Stotts was not prepared for, being that he's known for his grappling. So for him to kind of weather that storm, kind of reroute his game plan and finish it on the feet was quite impressive. You know, you have Patchy Mix. If he gets on your back, you're fucked. You're not going to get him off. He's a backpack, as Noah said yesterday in our first run of this episode. So that was quite the performance. Not necessarily some barn burner, some back and forth war, but good in the sense that he showed he's dominant on the feet. Horiguchi still there, won 2 rounds. You know, I think it was the second and fourth were the 2 rounds that stayed on the feet. So for that fight, honestly, it was the size difference for me.
So you were saying like Horiguchi got the better of the feet, but
yes,
once the fight was on the ground, not even
one-way
on the ground
traffic,
really.
Yeah.
Once Patchy Mix got his back, which happened multiple times, the size difference played a huge factor. I mean,
it was insane.
Horiguchi had the speed advantage, but it just seemed like Patchy Mix had a really keen ability to slow that fight down, get a hold of him, and get his back. And you do that multiple times, you're usually not going to win.
Yeah, exactly, man. And for the play-in bouts, you know, it's great to see Enrique Barzola, a guy that's been in the UFC, a veteran, has a ton of experience, ton of fights, get a victory, advance to be in that first round. But then Danny Sabatello, this guy came in as a minus 385 against an undefeated number 9 ranked Lugo. I was like, that's quite a big favorite. Or is he really this good? He's that good. He looked like a minus 700 favorite in this fight. It was pure dominance from start to finish. His grappling was second to none. Just so powerful. The pressure, the pacing. Man, if there's anyone that can make a surprise upset in this tournament, my money's on Danny Sabatello.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have any takeaways. I guess you kind of took them all right there. But, yeah, Danny Sabatello, definitely a dark horse right now. You got to love the performance there against such a bright up-and-comer and Jornal Lugo, who's looked so good. This was a big coming-out party for Sabatello. I think Patchy Mix's performance really stands out, in my opinion. I know the finish Rafion Stotts got and the fact that he got the title, that's going to carry a lot of the headlines. But Patchy Mix, he made weight. That's been a challenge for him in the past. Before this fight, he had a win over James Gallagher in that fight that he missed weight in. And then here he gets a pretty decisive victory over Horiguchi. It wasn't dominant. Again, it was like a 3-2, 48-47, but there was no doubt Patchy Mix won this fight when it was all said and done. And to get a win over Kyoji Horiguchi, who may be the best Japanese MMA fighter of all time, you know, there's some steep competition there, but that says a lot. And the size played a big factor, but that's going to be something to his advantage the rest of the way, too.
Yes.
You know, and for Horiguchi, who maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen him up against enough of these guys to know if he's one of the undersized guys in this Grand Prix, but it was a tough draw for his first fight, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're having some interesting storylines develop here because I think a semifinal matchup between Patchy Mix and Magomed Magomedov is just a delight. And, you know, obviously Magomedov has to beat Enrique Barzola. That'll be happening here, I think, at the end of June is when that fight, as well as the Sabatello Leandro Higo fight will take
that's
place.
who he's fighting.
But, yeah, this this tournament's off to a good start. I know we had a bumpy road to get to the
Right.
first fights, but they all turned out pretty good, and had some surprises, some standouts. I can't complain.
It still felt that it could be anyone's ball game. Truthfully, that's what I like.
Yeah, I mean that's so true too. I mean, yes, now I think the kind of favorite is Rafael Stotts, but man, if Sabatello or Leandro Higo put up a big performance, I mean those are tough guys that he may have to go up against in the semifinal.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So again, more on that card to come, or cards, whatever. Bellator 278, we do have from Friday. The main event was for the women's flyweight title. Liz Carmouche has finally reached the mountaintop. She has secured her first major MMA title with a fourth round TKO over the champion Juliana Velasquez. Did it with 13 seconds left in the round. But Dominic, unfortunately, there's a little rain on this party right now because there's a lot of controversy out there about the stoppage by referee Mike Beltran. Ultimately, Juliana Velasquez was in a crucifix position, so her arms were trapped. Carmouche was starting to land some elbows. She landed a few, but it didn't seem like... I'm trying to just present the facts and not throw how I feel into it. So she started landing elbows. After a few landed, Beltran stopped the fight. And the argument being made online by, I would say the majority of people think this is a bad stoppage from what I've seen. Yeah. Especially pundits in our space. And the argument seems to be that, since she is the champion and you got to give her a chance to defend, there's only 13 seconds left in the round. She was winning the fight on all three judges' scorecards. Two of those judges' scorecards had it 30-27 coming in. And even in that round, it's not like she had a bad round. It's just it was at the end she got stuck in a really bad position.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on the stoppage first. Are you in agreement with it, or do you think it was a bad stoppage?
I'm in the agreement that it was okay. I don't have an issue with it being stopped. I know that they weren't the most powerful elbows, but especially toward the end, a couple seconds before he stopped it, that's when they really started to land with some oomph. And if that carried on for 13 more seconds, we're talking some pretty good damage, maybe potential bad cuts. I mean, you know how elbows work, man. It don't take nothing to slice a forehead open. So I don't see an issue with it. If she would have taken more and more, that would have been a lot of unanswered elbows straight to the face. She was seemingly stuck. It didn't look like Juliana was going to get out. If she survived to that fifth round and didn't get cut, then hell, she could have came back and still won the fight. As Noah said, she was up on the judges' scorecards. But at the end of the day, that's not how it works. Carmouche gets the stoppage win. It's such a feel-good story for her to win regardless of how it happened. But yes, controversy in a Bellator title fight. Who would have thought?
I know that's true. It's man, such a Bellator thing to happen. I mean, again, they are not at fault for this. This is, whether you agree or not, this is ultimately Mike Beltran's decision. It's nothing to do with Bellator, but it just seems like it always is. Their high-profile bouts just seem to there's always something going on, right?
Yep.
And here was no different. How do I feel about this? Because I want to be really happy for Liz Carmouche, and I am in one way. But,
I know, man.
I thought the stoppage was a bit premature, but not to the extent. I was shocked at how many people were being very vocal about it.
Yeah.
I don't agree with the mindset that just because she's the champion that she should
deserves to be
that she should be given some sort of special chance to defend, extra time to possibly get out of it. I just don't think that that's how it works. That's kind of like when people say that any fight that goes to a decision, the champion should retain because you have to beat the champ to be the champ.
Yeah.
I never agree with that kind of sentiment. So here, I want to see this fight run back. That's ultimately what I feel, and that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
Again, Velasquez was winning most of this fight. Carmouche had her moments. I think round 2 she had some control time, and then here in round 4 at the end she got a good round going. But again, I don't remember how I was really scoring it. Again, 2 of the judges had it 2-1. Velasquez, and one had it 3-0 Velasquez. I don't know how I'm assuming round 4, if it had went all the way, probably would have went to Carmouche based on the elbows and stuff at the end there. But regardless, I think that there's enough of a it's not even about the controversy. It's just I think you saw a competitive enough bout where, yes, Carmouche was opportunistic. She got a very dominant position, and she finished the fight when she had an opportunity, a window to do so. Mm-hmm. But Juliana Velasquez was winning the fight, and, yeah, she only had one title defense, but who else are you going to give a title fight to in this division? You're not going to give one to Ilima McFarland. We'll talk about that later. You're going to give it to Justine Kish? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I think you run this fight back, and we'll see if Liz Carmouche can prove that it wasn't a fluke. And but I gotta kind of come at Juliana Velasquez a little bit again. There's in this performance, I will say that she fought a better fight than she did against Denise Kielholtz, at least before it went downhill. But she still lacks a little bit of urgency sometimes, and I think she plays it a little too safe. She is a good distance striker. She is a black belt in judo, but she just, I don't know. She could be much more lethal than I think she is.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, she was undefeated coming into this, obviously for a reason. But yes, the urgency, especially because I felt like when she beat Ilima Lei to get the belt, it was a pretty solid performance, like not lackluster like that.
I thought she looked very dominant. That was what it was so impressive because Ilima Lei was such a long-standing champion.
Exactly, and we haven't seen that since. And obviously, the matchups can hinder that. Of course, it's not like we're expecting her to come in and do what Habib did to people, but I do think ultimately it will be run back, like you said, and I think it should be. It does make sense for Carmouche. It's an opportunity to prove it wasn't a fluke, to solidify herself as the champion this late in her career. For Juliana, a chance to make it right. And honestly, if Juliana comes in and wins, then knowing Bellator, they'll probably make an immediate trilogy as well. But we'll let that simmer and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. One more card to go over, and that was the one that started our weekend off on a Wednesday, I guess, if that's how we're going about weekend previews.
That's how we got to do it.
That's the PFL. PFL, the first week went underway. It was the light heavyweights and the lightweights for this week. And the main event saw Cassius Clay Collard and Jeremy Stephens give us maybe the fight of the year so far. I mean, an absolute war for all 3 rounds. Clay Collard ends up getting the unanimous decision win over Jeremy Stephens. But nobody was really a loser in this fight, in my opinion. What a debut for Jeremy Stephens. I feel kind of bad for him because no judge gave him a round.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a clear 29-28 Collard, but man, that guy fought his ass off and he didn't even get a round from one judge. Really, guys? Come on. But maybe I kind of understand it for these judges because let's be clear, Clay Collard is maybe one of the most fun guys to watch in all of MMA right now.
Yeah, he is, and he definitely is in the PFL. They've got something special with Cassius Clay Collard, man. And he's been in fights like this, but this one was just elevated. It was the main event slot. It was the first regular season event. It was against Jeremy Stephens, UFC veteran. So what a fight, what a war. A great win for Clay Collard. He gets those 3 points to move into those kind of rankings and the point system they do for the season. For Jeremy Stephens, and I love how he put it in the post-fight presser, I feel like I can knock any of these motherfuckers out except for Clay Collard. So, Jeremy Stephens, he's still got some chin left in him. It's good that he's here in PFL. It just really fits him at this point in his career. And I'm not counting him out, Noah. He could very well win that second regular season match and put himself into the playoffs.
I mean, we could very well be looking at this as a rematch for the season crown. Now, I think there'll be some people that have something to say about that, but this definitely got me more excited about this lightweight division. It's one of the divisions that I think I maybe was overlooking a little bit, but after this, I really feel like we're in for a very competitive season for the lightweights, and credit to both these guys for just the absolute bloodshed that they gave for us fans on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
The best form of violence you can find on a Wednesday for sure, and I got to give credit to the PFL too because I I've been very hard on the PFL the last few months. The PFL Challenger Series was a bit of a dud in my opinion, and then you had the really dropping the ball moment of promoting taped fights as live events.
Yeah.
Really fucking up things on the betting side for people. So I'm glad to see that they're back in their groove. This is where they excel at, is right here, doing this season format. They had a really good first card here. Obviously, we'll have more to talk about later, but a great way to cap it off. It has me excited for week 2.
Yes, amen, brother.
Yeah. Now, before we get into the rest of these fights from these cards, we got one things to talk about, and both of them involve the world of boxing, Dom.
This is true.
How about that? So, Saturday, also, I mean, just the fight weekend was crazy.
A lot of combat.
Tyson Fury, following his knockout win over Dillian White, he brings none other than UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou into the ring. They're buddying it up, chummying it up, arm around one another. Tyson Fury says they are going to fight. They are going to find out who's the baddest man on the planet. Tyson Fury said it can be boxing gloves, MMA gloves, in a cage, in a ring. It don't matter.
Yeah.
A lot being said here, Dominic, but your thoughts on a potential Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou boxing fight with MMA gloves is the leading theory right now.
Yeah, so it's, you know, when you put it that way, it's like you look at when we've seen this happen before, right? With Conor McGregor, obviously Floyd Mayweather comes to mind, but that was a typical, normal boxing rules, everything, 12-ounce gloves, you name it, it was boxing. This is different. We're talking potential MMA gloves, which are 4 ounces, way different from boxing gloves. Mm-hmm. You know, a mixed rules fight in a boxing ring. Francis Ngannou, the power, he puts people to sleep with one punch. Tyson Fury, well, he's got an uppercut of his own. If you watched on Saturday night, you know, both these guys have had some pretty highlight reel uppercuts. If you remember Francis versus Overeem. So this feels big. It feels like something big is brewing, I should say, for 2023. You know, selfishly as an MMA fan, I would hate to see Francis not continue in the UFC and defend his heavyweight title. So obviously the ideal situation is him and the UFC can come to terms. They can fix this. He can fight and defend his belt in 2023 and then move right in to a boxing or mixed rules fight, I should say, with Tyson Fury. Francis Ngannou, Noah, could be in 2023 having one of the biggest years ever for an athlete, period.
Oh, that's a take right there. I mean, I know it could be a huge year for him, but you know, I don't know. But I get what you're saying. He's definitely like a shooting star right now. Like he's just on an absolute climb. He is on the shelf for the rest of this year, so kind of his 2022 is kind of wrapped up early. But I don't know if he was really going to fight again this year, anyways.
Yeah.
Surgery or no surgery, and okay. Truth be told, this fight will be absolutely massive, and it's so strange because Tyson Fury is obviously he's one of the biggest draws in combat sports right now.
Yeah.
Francis Ngannou maybe isn't there yet, but he's kind of on his way there, and I think that things like this, which you saw Saturday, are really putting it in people's mind, like how big of a deal this fight can be. I think this fight happens in 2023. I am, however, not very confident that we do see Francis Ngannou fight in the UFC again. It's interesting because where does Francis Ngannou go from there? After he does this, if he were to do this mixed rules, or it's not really mixed rules, but having, you know, we'll call it mixed rules just to make it easy, fight.
Yeah.
You know, where does he go from there? He does that. I don't think he has much of a shot at winning. I mean, I guess you always have a chance when you have the kind of power he does, but I mean, it's still boxing.
Tyson Fury is one of the best boxers ever.
Yeah. So I just have a hard time seeing him winning. But win or lose there, I mean, where does he really go from there? You know, especially with the loss, like what's next? And then, I mean, the amount of millions of dollars he's going to get from that fight. You know he's not going to go back to fighting for the rate that he was in the UFC.
Right.
So that's going to force Dana and the boys to either pay the man or don't.
Yeah.
And to be honest, with Conor McGregor, it made sense because Conor McGregor on his own was doing 1.5 million pay-per-views with Nate Diaz and Eddie Alvarez and guys like Jose Aldo and Chad Mendez. They're doing big pay-per-view buys. Francis Ngannou maybe at that point would be of a Conor McGregor level, but I have a hard time seeing someone, even Ngannou, who I think has that superstar potential. I have a hard time seeing him reaching like a Conor McGregor level.
Yeah.
I have a hard time seeing him become bigger than the UFC.
Right.
So if he doesn't do that, I don't know if it would even be in the UFC's best interest to pay him what he's going to want to continue defending that heavyweight title for them. Could be wrong. Obviously, if the fight with Fury takes place, that's just going to bring so many eyes to him that maybe he will be like Mike Tyson 2.0, basically. But time will tell. I don't think the UFC will have a part in promoting that mixed rules event. I know we talked about this the first time we did this episode. I'm not confident that the UFC will have a part in it like they did for Conor and Mayweather, but if they do find it, Dana White at the end of the day is a good businessman. Dana and the boys, they are good at what they do for a reason. So if they really see no other possibility but to get involved to financially benefit from this, then maybe they do.
Yeah. So this is kind of like where my headspace is, because obviously, if things don't fix between Francis and his team and the UFC, he just becomes a free agent in like January or something, based off of this kind of weird contract situation that he's in. So obviously, if that doesn't happen, he'll probably just go right in and do the boxing match, and we may just never see him fight again after that ever. He's going to make so much money anyway. But so on the other end, say they kind of work this out in 2022 where the contract situation, gets fixed with the UFC. I almost envision the UFC wanting Francis to defend the belt against whoever the interim champion may be early 2023, whether it's John, Stipe, Tai Tuivasa, whoever the hell it may be. We don't know what's going to happen in 2022. Yeah. But I would see that, and then it essentially would be the UFC kind of going out on a limb, taking a bit of a risk, and saying, all right, if he can win this, that builds more credibility. We go right into this boxing match with Tyson Fury and just blow the roof off this place with a massive pay-per-view. That's kind of where I'm at least the two spectrums of how this fight will come together.
The only reason I don't think that happens is because his contract's up at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And, again, the UFC, maybe after the fight takes place, will see the value in bringing him in, even if he is bigger than the sport. A la Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
But, again, I think Ngannou's going to have a very big price tag almost immediately following Saturday. I think his price tag might be to a level that, dare I say, he might not be worth right now. Mm-hmm. Worth relatively. Let me be clear that the guy's worth a lot. And then, you have the whole fighter pay thing. I'm just saying that as it stands, as the UFC's model is kind of working, Ngannou, I think, is going to want a lot of money now because he knows where he's going.
Yes. That
it's only going up. And again, I just don't know if the UFC is going to commit to that. And I don't think they'll commit to that if the fight hasn't taken place yet.
Right.
So it does leave a lot up in the air as far as for the UFC's heavyweight division. We can be excited about that fight all we want with him and Fury, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of fun theater while the real competitive bouts are kind of hurting here because, we want to see the best heavyweight in the world compete. But if he doesn't, I mean, it's kind of crazy how this can open the door for either John Jones or Stipe Miocic, if that fight happens, to have John Jones, we kind of already expected to potentially hold a heavyweight title and defend it, but if Stipe could win it again, and maybe have another title reign,
it's crazy.
Who would have saw that coming?
The heavyweight division is in a state right now that it's never been in before in the UFC.
It's very intriguing, but also frustrating.
Yes, exactly.
Now let's get into the rest of the fights from the weekend. We'll go back to the UFC. Co-main event, Claudio Puelles gets his third knee bar in UFC out of his 5 victories over Clay Guida. 3 minutes into the first round, a lot of first-round finishes on this card. Claudio Puelles was 7 years old when Clay Guida made his MMA debut.
Yeah.
And here he is putting him in a knee bar. It's probably submission of the year right now, I would say, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, this was unreal. The guy came into the UFC, Puelles, that is, loses his debut, and now he's tallied all 5 in a row, caps that winning streak off with Clay Guida, submitting him with a knee bar in the first round. Looked like a wizard on the ground, the way he was moving about, transitioning. He was threatening, obviously, so many different positions. But the specific route to which he got to that knee bar was unlike anything I've ever seen before. It happened so quick, you blink and you miss it. This kid, all of a sudden, is on a lot of people's radars because he was in a co-main event slot on an ESPN Plus card. I think if he is entering those other prospects in this lightweight division, and there's a shit ton of them that are right on the cusp and looking into that top 15, he has now joined that conversation.
You might be right, but let me just play devil's advocate for a second. Is really so we know how lethal he is with jiu-jitsu. You saw the transitions here and how wicked fast they were.
Yeah.
The way his body was moving at times just seemed like physically impossible, right?
Yeah.
But it also, to me, feels like he might be a very limited fighter, and that maybe once you go beyond that, maybe his striking doesn't hold up. Maybe his other abilities of MMA are just not up to snuff. While you got guys in this lightweight division, I mean, that's such a shark tank that are prospects that are already full. They're the full package already.
Yes.
I mean, they're good everywhere. So while I agree with you, I'm not sure if a win as impressive of a knee bar as it was over Clay Guida, and Clay Guida's a legend, but Clay Guida is also not the kind of guy to get a win over that's determined that you're a top 15 player.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I get what you're saying as far as, like, maybe this does get him into a certain conversation. Yeah, co-main spot, that's awesome. I'm surprised at how little I've heard about Claudio Puelles since it happened. So I'm just not sure if he's really getting that respect right now. But if he keeps going, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Next up, Macy Barber gets her second straight win, even though it feels like this is the one that really got her back on track.
Yeah.
With the unanimous decision win over Montana De La Rosa, 30-27s across the board. Maybe one judge gave Montana a round, I'm not sure. So Dominic, Macy Barber, 23 years old still, so young.
Yep.
She is coming off a win over Miranda Maverick, another good up-and-comer in this division. But it was a fight that people were not impressed with her performance, and most thought she didn't really deserve to win the fight. Here, can't really say anything about her not deserving to win here. I mean, it was a pretty clear victory for her. But in your eyes, is Macy Barber back?
I think she's right. This type of performance is something I think she needed. I think she needed a dominant showing, which is what she came into the UFC and was starching 3 straight opponents. Granted, those were all finishes. This was good because it was a complete 15 minutes, and she looked good throughout. Yes, she had some bottom. Montana got on top of her in the second round for a few minutes, but outside of that, she looked great. She was able to even get back up in the second round, get some top control herself. So this was something I feel like we needed to see from Macy. You know, it like you said, it felt like the bounce back win because that one against Miranda Maverick didn't necessarily have that feel to it. So yes, at 23 years old, she's getting better, and I see it. I saw it in this fight, and it makes me excited for what's to come next. This could be the win she needed to really pick up that momentum she once had.
Yes, I completely agree with that sentiment. That I saw a lot of improvement here.
Yeah.
Didn't see it in the Miranda Maverick fight. Obviously, didn't see it in the Alexa Grasso fight or the Roxanne Modafferi fight. But with Macy Barber, I've always been rooting for her, but I respect her confidence. I know some people don't like her for it, but I have always respected it for as young as she is, as talented as she is. But I've also not been someone who thought that she was going. I did not think that the whole being the youngest champion thing,
right?
Regardless of Valentina Shevchenko, who's just levels above the rest in this division. Macy Barber has prided herself on the power in her strikes, her ability to strike on the feet, but I wouldn't say that she really competes very well if she's going up against a seasoned striker.
Right.
And, I just feel like it kind of limited her ceiling a little bit. But here I saw a much more well-rounded game from her, and that's all I wanted. I didn't need to see her go in and get like a TKO finish via strikes. That'd be impressive, sure. But to see that she's working on those other elements for getting better, I know she works a lot with Ben Askren, so you would hope that the wrestling would be improving quite a bit, and it looks like she is, man. She's really fully fleshing out the rest of her game, and as she gets a few years older, I mean, she could become very dangerous here, and I just hope the UFC kind of stop putting all these top women up-and-comers in this division against one another. We need to start placing them against people like Jessica like Lauren Murphy.
They're going to replace them,
Like they need to these ladies that are in the top 10 need to prove that they're really worthy of staying there.
Yep.
And these up-and-comers got to prove that they're legit. They're ready for the big time. That's what we got to be doing here. Montefiore fighting Jennifer Maia, that kind of stuff. Like that's what we need more of.
Yes, and there's so many of them.
I saw someone call for Macy Barber to fight Aaron Blanchfield, and I'm like, stop it. Bad dog. Like, spray him with the water gun,
Yeah.
Next up, one of the best nicknames in the game, in my opinion, Charles Air Jourdain got the first-round submission over Lando Venata. Didn't come easy, but he got it pretty quickly here, 2.5 minutes into round one. You know how I feel about Charles Jourdain. I think he's super underrated talent. This was supposed to be a bit of a barn burner of a fight. Ended up going a lot quicker than we thought. Were you at all impressed by the finish, or any real takeaway here, or are you more impressed with maybe how Venata was kind of looking early? Any thoughts on this one?
I feel like there's positive takeaways for both guys, as short of a fight as it was. Lando looked very crisp and technical and precise, powerful even in the first couple minutes. Jourdain, of course, flipping the tide, locks in a guillotine submission with one arm. He didn't even use the second arm, Noah. That was very impressive. Charles Jourdain hasn't really showed us a submission threat in his career, and then he goes out and makes it look easy, essentially, once he had it locked in. Choked Lando right out of his Venom fight kit. He was in his undies running around the octagon.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
So, this was a very good performance from Charles Jourdain. Lando's always going to be there and challenging these younger guys, but Jourdain, and I think I said it on Thursday, but just like or it might have been on the betting show, but Jourdain's, I think, just ceiling in general, at only 26 years old, there's some legitimate potential here in this guy, and he's tallied off 2 in a row now, 2 very good performances.
Yeah, I've been riding high on Charles Jourdain. Was a little nervous early in this first round, but that's kind of Jourdain's game, man. That's why people, I think, do underestimate him, is because he doesn't necessarily always have the cleanest of wins or the most flawless of performances, but the guy ultimately is winning, and he's winning in pretty good fashion, I would say. So he's an exciting fighter, but I think he's more than that too. I think he's very talented. So I'm happy to see he got the win. Back to Bellator we go. Saturday, this was in Honolulu, Hawaii, the home of one former women's flyweight champion, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane. And she ultimately loses a unanimous decision to Justine Kish. Justine getting her first win in the Bellator cage. Makes her 1-1 now, I believe. In the UFC, she went something like 2-5 or 3-4 or something like that. She had an under 500 record in the UFC. This was expected to be kind of a get-right fight for Macfarlane, I think, and she comes out on the losing end. I'm just going to be honest, Dom. Before Macfarlane's title defense with Juliana Velasquez, that was kind of when I started watching Bellator. If I remember right, that's like one of the first Bellator cards I really sat down and watched.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to experience a lot of the hype for Ilima-Lei Macfarlane and experience some of her title defenses before. Not too impressed so far, and I obviously, like you're seeing her I'm watching her 2 losses, but I'm not really seeing the long-standing champion, look at the kind of entrance she got here.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a Conor McGregor level entrance, and she was in a feature bout for Bellator 279. It's very interesting. I think Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, I could see the appeal I see, she's good looking. She's got a good, exciting fight style. But here with Justine Kish, she fell flat.
Yeah.
That's really all I can say about it. I will give Justine Kish credit that she was a much more game opponent. She looked a lot better than I expected her to.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, the ball was in Ilima-Lei Macfarlane's court, and she came up short once again.
Yeah, I mean, you put it best. The best, and just to cap it off, it's just essentially, while it was a good win for Kish, one that shocked a lot of people, she could potentially catapult herself right into the top 5 of the flyweight division if we're talking about the champions and whatnot in the future, and the title challengers, I should say. But it was a worse loss for Ilima-Lei Macfarlane.
Yeah.
Very, very tough. Curious to see kind of what she wants to do next, or if she's going back to the drawing board after what was already a very long layoff.
Yeah, completely agree. We already talked about the play-in bouts for the Grand Prix, so we will skip over those on the script and move right back into the PFL to cap this one off. As I mentioned about that lightweight tournament earlier, well, the champion of last year's lightweight tournament, the underdog, the guy that was, I think, at that plus 1,000 betting underdog to win that season's tournament, and he did it. Rosh Manfio, he was back, and he was going up against someone a lot of people were excited about, myself included, Don Madge.
Yeah.
Don Madge looked great early, was getting the better of the first 2 rounds, looked like he was about to get a really statement victory in the very first event of the season, and then Rosh Manfio lands some nasty combination that puts him out in round number 3. You can never count out this guy, Rosh Manfio. I find myself just so amazed by this guy each time I watch him, because I keep counting him out and he keeps breaking down those walls and showing that he's legit. He's a real deal. You can't say anything about him anymore. Sure, he's losing this fight, but he might be losing for 14 minutes of the fight, but you got to make sure you're on your P's and Q's for that last minute, or else you're going to get put to sleep. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, does anyone embody the underdog role as much as Manfio right now in MMA? I mean, you said it, a plus 1,000 last year, runs through the competition, wins very decisively in all of his bouts last year, even beat Anthony Pettis in his debut fight in PFL, and was still looked at as an underdog, won that $1 million, won that Grand Prix. Then he comes into this and was still a huge underdog against Don Madge. I get the hype was there. He's still a very good talent. I think he's going to make noise still in this season. But Roush Manfio finishes him, makes a statement, and proves, hey, I'm the guy that won last year, and I should be the front runner to win again this year. What a performance. What a finish, I should say.
And I'm glad you said that about Don Madge, because I still think that he might be, just like we said with Jeremy Stevens.
Yes.
I think you might be seeing him make a lot of noise still from even coming off this type of loss. I think it's his first loss via knockout, though, so that's definitely tough. But just a great first event for PFL. And then the light heavyweight winner last season, Antonio Carlos Jr., was back, shoeface, and he gets the first round 29-second submission over Dylan Monte. He was already a minus 1,000 favorite, Dominic.
Yeah.
I mean, do we just hand him the $1 million check already?
I mean, he didn't even get touched. No dust or nothing. Came right back in after the layoff and gets the win. Hurt him on the feet, damn near knocked him out, then locked in the Darce choke submission. This is what I love about the PFL. Is that Antonio Carlos Jr., another guy we're looking at, you want to talk about like a Jeremy Stevens, for example, struggled in the UFC, especially latter parts before they left the company. They come into the PFL. Look what Shoeface did last year. Wins $1 million, gets a belt, and now he's a huge favorite to win it again this year. Steamrolls his first opponent. This is where the PFL can shine and the type of competition and fighters that they can bring in. This is what I love so much about this company and what they do with this show and the way that they do their season. And Shoeface is leading the charge at kind of being example A of that right there.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying this is a slight on the UFC, but this is a guy who maybe never made more than like 50, 60,000 on a single fight, depending if he won or not, and Antonio Carlos Jr. And here in the PFL, I'm not sure what he's making per fight, but if he wins the tournament, he gets $1 million, Dominic,
yeah.
And he did that last season. So
yeah.
When one season in the PFL, he won the tournament, and he won more money than he'll probably would have ever made if he never got this opportunity.
Exactly. It's great.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap it up here for this weekend edition, or the recap edition, of the show. And we do have one more segment to send us out. closing statements. Dominic, do you have any closing statements for this episode?
I don't have anything too crazy, not any big speeches planned, but I know that the springtime weather's hitting. I hope we're all enjoying it. I hope we're all happy, and we're appreciating the support. Obviously, we're heading into episode 200 coming out Thursday. Another milestone, another marker that we're just going to keep crushing through, baby. We appreciate your all support, and I'm probably going to reiterate it again on Thursday. But so happy for you all being with us on this ride. We're just going to keep climbing.
Yep, I got to pee. So that's it. We're out. And hopefully this is the last time we do this episode, and we will see you guys on Thursday.